So I'll give a quick summary of the story of what's happening in New Zealand. So recently they declared Mount
Taranaki.
There we go. Mount Taranaki, a legal person, meaning it has rights, responsibilities, and guardians protecting it. This follows similar designations for the Waganagi River and the Teura.
Whanganui.
Well, you can pronounce it that with the W or the, and so the other one was the Teura forest under the Maori traditions. All right, so for the rest of this, I think we're gonna refer to them as the mountain, the river, and the forest.
There
right?
you go.
Okay.
Mountain, river, and forest.
Okay, great. And so basically, what's happened is they view nature as an ancestor, not a property, and so protecting natural entities from human exploitation using legal tools. And I actually watched, in preparation for this, on my way here, I listened to a YouTube documentary on the river, actually. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, the way that they are approaching this by basically saying, like, look, we're not crazy over here in New Zealand. We're not saying that the mountain is a person, but it should have the same legal rights as a person.
That's how it always starts. I mean, it's you're going to get pushback when you have stuff like this because the clickbait is, these crazy people are making a mountain a person. You know, and it does work because you got the old expression "mountain out of a molehill" and all this.
Sure.
And so you got all kind of puns you can play with, and but it really is the same thing as the reasoning, and you can agree or disagree with it. But this is the reasoning is similar to with the reasoning with corporations becoming a person under legal entity, is that there's a lot of factors, but the main one is this can get passed down. So like if me and Sean are partners, right? And so in a corporation, and before a corporation was looked at, and both of us, die or whatever, then it's just gone. There's no such thing anymore.
Sure.
But since it's a corporation, it's a living, breathing entity. It continues on without us. And I think that's what they're trying to do here is, we know it's not a person, but if it's given the rights of a person and it doesn't ever go away, then it's a living, breathing, so to speak, thing for eternity is the plan is what they're trying to do.
So they're trying to save the environment.
Yeah, and it's a legal way to do it.
And anytime you start off with the the argument that we're not crazy over here,
but
that was literally like one of the things was like court proceedings or whatever, where the guy said, I know this sounds a little like hokey. He didn't say hokey because I don't think they probably say hokey in New Zealand, but whatever the New Zealand equivalent is of that. But he was like, look, we get it. Let me explain.
Yeah. Well, and
we get that it sounds a little outlandish. I believe is the word.
It's not surprising, for news like this to be coming, out of New Zealand. New Zealand is what I would consider, and probably most people would consider, a very liberal, anti far right, political type climate over there. They're one of the, countries that, recognize, same sex relationships and marriage very early on, before, like, even in like the 80s type thing, well before the rest of the world was. So they would probably be seen, to most people, as a very liberal, socially liberal at least, type country with some very advanced and liberal views, on things.
And you also got the fact that you got indigenous people that are fighting against the people that, however you want to say it, moved in, came there, I don't know. But so those cultures are kind of fighting each other. And I'm sure if you look online, there's when their cabinet, I guess, or their senate or whatever you call it there, met, and they had that big cheer and all that stuff when it was the indigenous people, making their point known and that kind of stuff. So I think you're going to have a lot of that, and their beliefs, and the indigenous people are, like you said, that the land is their ancestors. And so when you say that to somebody who doesn't grow up in that or doesn't believe that, then obviously that sounds crazy. But if that's their culture, and that's kind of, yes, they don't believe that the mountain can walk away, right? And so and you have that battle of kind of the online battle of protecting what you believe in, and then the other side of that's going to say you're crazy, and so that's what we see online. But legally, I think they're doing, the indigenous people are doing what they're supposed to do to protect the mountain. Like, this is the way you should do it. You shouldn't go out there and loot and burn stuff or whatever. They're legal. If you want to get it something done, you go through it legally, and they've done that, and evidently it's working. I don't know the ups and downs or the negatives and positives for that area, but I do applaud them for going through the action in the way that they've gone through it.
Okay. Do you think that granting legal personhood to nature works in other parts of the world?
I don't think it's generally necessary, at least in our American system of justice.
Right. There's other protections.
Yeah, I mean, most of our, a lot of our stuff is already protected in one form of another. Whether it's a national park, a state park, a conservation area type thing. And in order to enforce the rights of this so-called person, mountain, park, stream, or anything, there's avenues that the average person can. What we have to have in order to, enforce a right is standing in a legal system.
And that's a great point.
If Reed,
I skipped over that. That's a great point.
If Reed gets involved in a car accident tomorrow and it's somebody else's fault, I can't go and file a lawsuit, Sean Merzlak versus Betty Jones, who ran in the back of Reed. Because the court would say, I don't have standing. I don't have a dog in the fight. Yep. Why am I here?
Everything you said might be right, but it doesn't matter.
Reed, would have standing to file a lawsuit in that case. And when it comes to, rivers, mountains, national parks, state parks, things like that, lakes, the way that a person in America can get standing is, either organizations that represent that type of thing, or you just have to, the organization itself might not have standing, but they will find an individual who is part of their organization that does. If you've visited Yellowstone Park before and you plan to visit there in the future and something is occurring that is damaging that, then a court could see you as having standing because that's affecting your rights that are being, even
to visit your friend the park.
Well, the parks are protected. So if it's not protected, you don't have that. But if the parks are protected, then if you're a visitor to it, then you can have standing, right?
Which would be different from me filing a lawsuit alleging that something happened to me that actually happened to Reed.
Right.
This is saying, one of my rights is being infringed upon as a result of, what is adversely affecting this national park or lake or stream or mountain,
so I feel like this is a dumb question, but the point of the show, right?
I'm sure it's not dumb.
But so that in some way, is that how it protects people who protest, like when there are like against environmental whatever, like
it's kind of yes and no. So that you got a little bit of apples and oranges because it depends on what you're protesting. If you're protesting something that's not protected already, then they're essentially like the New Zealand case is trying to get standing.
Sure.
Because you don't, if it's not a protected thing, then you really are talking about bodily injury and stuff like that. You can't bring if there's not a law to protect it, then you don't really have standing to protect it unless you own the land. So some of those are trying to get the land to be protected, right? And so to earn standing for people that go to see the land. And then you have other ones, exactly what Sean's talking about is like.
Well, no, it's a very odd thing to think about it. But when you think about it legally, you have to think about, who is affected by whatever decision is being made or use of the land that's being made or misuse or, whatever the complaining thing is, who is affected by that, whether or not they have an individual right to assert some type of claim for what is occurring. And we have, many cases. There's many cases that go up on appeal that the appeals court says, even if what you said is true, you don't have standing to assert this type of thing. So we look at a lot of cases and a lot of the very famous cases that we see at the United States Supreme Court level are people that were individually picked to represent this type of lawsuit. Right. If Sean Merzlak has a problem with a political problem with a gun law that's in, New York. Well, I don't live in New York. These gun laws don't affect me or anything like that. I don't have standing to sue on behalf of because I think that this is wrong.
Yeah.
But if I went up to New York and started interviewing people and, bump into, Joe
Price
Blow.
Dunaway.
Yeah, Price Dunaway.
Dunaway.
And says, well, yeah, I was actually up here and I tried to purchase a handgun and they wouldn't allow me to because of these laws.
Yeah.
Well, then now I have a person who, may have standing to assert, a claim for their rights being violated type thing.
For the viewers and listeners, Price Dunaway is who?
That's my father-in-law. Great man. He I don't know how he does it, but he
Before people started Googling to figure out who
he's
he
a good
is.
dude. He great guy, but he works in New York Monday through Friday and lives in Augusta Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
For tax purposes, he is a resident of Georgia.
I honestly don't know that. I don't ask. I don't know.
All right, let's always spread his business on the podcast.
I don't know.